Hello, you join me and my increasingly unruly facial hair inside the new BMW X3 M50, which is going to be the flagship X3 in South Africa because they're not bringing the X3M. So, is this car good enough to hold the title of flagship X3? Well, let's find out. And before we do,
let's find what moves you. Cars.co.za.
hello, now I have been asked to tell you about Cars.co.za because I work here. Now on the site right now, you will find 72,000 cars to choose from, which is quite a lot. And yes, most of them are used cars. However, a significant number, many of them, an exact number of which I don't know and head office didn't tell me, but a lot of them are brand new cars and demos. So whether you are looking for a used car, a new car, or a demo, you'll find what you're looking for on Cars.co.za. Check out our mobile site, our desktop site, and our fantastic free app in whichever app store you use.
Let's find what moves you. Cars.co.za.
Right, so the BMW X3 represents quite a nice proud moment for South Africa because it is built in Roslyn for the world. However, they only build the PHEV here, which is cool because it's very difficult to build and quite complicated. So it's cool that we won that manufacturing contract and BMW trusts us to build these new fancy cars, which is cool. And funnily enough, the PHEV version, which is called the 30E, actually won our CarsAwards recently, sponsored by ABSA. So you can go and check that out on the, I'll put a link somewhere, or someone will put a link somewhere which you can go and read about that. But this particular one is made in Spartanburg in the USA. Now I've actually been to Spartanburg. It's an amazing facility. They built all the X cars for the world. 10,000 people work there. In fact, one of their biggest challenges is just getting everyone in and out of the factory every day. They have their own public transport system. It's quite fascinating. So this car gets shipped over from America as is, basically, which means that you probably won't be able to spec it exactly as you want unless you're willing to wait a long time. So you're going to have to walk into a showroom, see what they've got, and that's pretty much that. However, the cars are pretty well spec'd from new, and BMW has rolled back some of their subscription nonsense that they were trying to force on all of us a little while ago. So under the bonnet is BMW's widely acclaimed B58 engine, which for this model they've managed to make more complicated and less powerful and sound less interesting than in other applications, which if you think about it is quite impressive. So I know you BMW lovers, you love your codes, chassis codes and all the rest of it. So this is the B58 30M engine, also known as the B58 TU2, which stands for Technical Update 2. And on the way to the shoot this morning, I listened to many YouTube videos explaining the 48-volt mild hybrid system that you get in this car. And what I'm going to do now is try explain it to you as fast and as simply as I can. And to help you get through this really boring, nerdy part of the video, we're going to put a countdown timer on the top of the screen. So if you couldn't care less about this sort of thing, you can just skip ahead. Right, here we go. The B58 TU2 with the 48-volt mild hybrid system employed in this car works as follows. There is a generator, which is also a motor, which is attached to the starter. Now the starter only works to cold start the car when it needs that extra boost. Otherwise it doesn't do anything, it just goes on holiday. The generator works as both a dynamo and a motor. And to do that, it needs a dual direction power transfer unit, which is then connected to the lithium-ion battery. The lithium-ion battery is only charged during brake recuperation and throttle overrun. And to make that work, it needs a more complicated braking system in the car. The generator also generates a lot of heat, and so it needs its own cooling system. Now, what this does for the car is give you an extra 8 kilowatts or 11 horsepower. And BMW says that it will reduce fuel consumption by an average of 0.3 liters per 100. So can you imagine how much weight and complexity that adds in terms of cooling, wiring, the lithium-ion battery to save 0.3 liters per 100? I just don't know if that's worth it. And what you could do to help offset that weight is just have a really substantial poo before you go for a drive. That will help. Over the course of my career, I've been really lucky to go to a couple of BMW international launches, and sometimes they fly out the big cheeses. So Frank van Meel, the head of BMW M for the world, he was on a couple of the launches that I've been on, and it's amazing to spend time with somebody like that. And then also what they do is they fly out a couple of the engineers who worked on the car. And in my experience, they're mostly German, and they're mostly just really good guys. They're proper car guys. And they're also very funny. I don't know why Germans have this reputation of being unfunny, but I always enjoy their company. And I think that as a young automotive engineer, if you want to go work for BMW, it must be really exciting. And then you hope that you get to work on like the M cars and, develop the drift modes and all that sort of thing. That must be what you really look forward to. And I think what happens at BMW head office is if you lose a bet, you get assigned to work on the mild hybrid system as like a punishment, as like a fine. So, they're like at the office party, they're like, Hans, you lost that bet and PSG Eindhoven, they won last night. So you get to go work on the lithium-ion battery for 3 weeks. Oh, Hans, you're so funny. Thank you so much for making it through my extremely boring, nerdy part of the video. We are now going to get onto slightly more exciting things, like what this car is like to drive. So let's do a little launch control for fun. Now, we're in sport gearbox. Dave, the car whisperer, my colleague, told me if I hold this boost paddle here for 10 seconds, I get extra power or something. And what is quite cool about the X3 M50 is you get 4 pops, which means the car's really fast. Okay, left foot on the brake, right foot on the pedal. Oh, jeez! Oh, that was pretty cool. All right. Yeah, that was pretty satisfying. This very complicated mild hybrid system, which I now think I even understand, has made me think of a solution. I think that I've come up with an idea to save the German car industry and make petrol heads happy at the same time. And I'm going to get to that part at the end of the video. See what I did there? Sneaky little throw forward. So now you have to stay. You can't leave. Right. Now, the reason you've bought an X3 M50 and not just an X320D, which is an excellent car and very fuel efficient, and if you're just looking for a commuter, that's the one that I'd have. It's also quite a bit cheaper. But the reason you've bought this one is so that you can tell your friends that you have more money, and also so that you can enjoy the drive a little bit. So has BMW created an SUV which will reward and satisfy driving enthusiasts? Let's find out. Now, one of the things that has changed for this generation is you don't get mode buttons anymore. So there just used to be a sport button down here, but that's gone now. So now you get a button called My Modes, which then brings up a menu on the screen. And now you choose Sport, Efficient, Expressive, Relax, Digital Art, or Silent. Those are your modes now. So let's go for Sport. Now, putting it in sport does a few things, and it also doesn't do a few things. It doesn't automatically put the gearbox in sport, although that is probably a setting. So then you have to flick the little gear switch down here into sport. Now you get the sport gearbox mode, which is good. So let's see how this all works. Here we go. We're in 6th, and 5, 4, 3, 2. Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I definitely think that there's enough here for the average enthusiast to feel purchase satisfaction in terms of how rewarding and enjoyable the dynamic drive is. It really is just excellent. There's a corner. Oh, look at that. Those iconic sounds blasting fake exhaust note through the sound system. Actually does sound quite cool, I'm not gonna lie. This shit was real. You can turn them off if you want it to be less interesting. Right, 293 kilowatts, 580 newton meters of torque, 0 to 100 in around 5 seconds. So it's definitely not slow, and I must say it is dynamically excellent. The suspension, which does have M adaptive dampers, is brilliant. It is so comfortable, while at the same time helping you corner flat and really giving you confidence in the corners. The B58 is a remarkable motor, it really is. But what's remarkable about the B58 2U2 in this engine is that even though the B58 naturally has a fantastic 6-cylinder sound, they've actually had to make it quieter on the outside. Now, to keep petrol heads happy on the inside, they then developed a system called Iconic Sounds, which plays sounds through the speaker system to enhance the enjoyment of the engine sounds, which they made quieter. All right. But genuinely, if you get the opportunity to get out of the city and take this car to a mountain pass or some farm roads, you are going to enjoy it. It is really good dynamically, really, really good. I actually don't think the M car would be significantly better than this. I mean, it might, but it's probably not worth the extra 500 grand that it'll probably cost. The reason why I bring up these engineers is because in my experience, they're brilliant at what they do, and they're proper car guys. And I feel like if they were left to their own devices, this X3 would not be this complicated, and it would just be way more of an enthusiast vehicle. Sitting in this cabin and knowing what I know now about the hybrid system and all the rest of it, and the iconic sounds and all the rest of it, it's just unnecessarily complex. And I imagine that a lot of it, their hand is forced because they have to make their cars low emissions and low fuel consumption, and they can't be loud anymore because European cities hate cars and they don't want you to make a noise anymore. So I get this feeling, and I kind of feel sorry for these guys. But the result is, no matter whether they intended it or not, or their hands were forced, is that you end up with a car which is a really nice experience to drive, but which I think is going to be extremely difficult and expensive to maintain once it's out of warranty. The average workshop's not going to be able to work on it, so you're going to have to go basically to the agents. And what I think that does is it really drives down the used value and the potential of this car to become a good buy in the used car market, because it's just going to be so difficult to look after because it's so complex. I mean, these air vents, let me take you through these air vents, right? So in the old days, if you wanted to close your air vent, you just closed it, right? You just like turn a knob or slide a thing or whatever it is, right? Now the air vent has a digital control on the door, which does look quite cool. But then that means that in the air vent, there's a little motor to actually close the air vent. So you see what I'm saying? It just feels like it's just unnecessarily complicated. And I imagine that BMW engineers think, okay, our customers want the best of the best, they want progress and all the rest of it. But that just seems so unnecessary. Did any of their customers go, you know what we want, BMW? We want more complicated air vents that are just going to break and be expensive to replace. Is that what the focus group said? Because if those people said that in the focus group, they should all be excommunicated, sent to do something else with their lives. I think the reason why I feel so passionately about these things is because after 20 years in the game, I've seen cars go from sort of what my E39 M5 is to this. So I've really seen the progress that BMWs in particular have made, and I get to drive both back to back. And it makes me think, 20 odd years ago, no, 1997, so how long ago is that? 28 years ago, right? BMW created the E39 M5, 4.9 litre naturally aspirated V8. That car has 294 kilowatts and 500 newton meters, which is more kilowatts and slightly less torque than this engine. And it has none of the tech that I've mentioned in this engine. And do you know what's incredible? I'm averaging 9.7 liters to the 100 in here, driving fairly conservatively and highway driving. Do you know what my BMW M5 averages on the highway? 9.7 liters to the 100. So in 28 years, how far have we actually come? And how much of a benefit are we getting from all of this complexity? I just don't think it's worth it. And what that does is neatly bring me onto my solution for how to save the legacy brands in the German car industry and keep petrol heads happy. So here we go. What BMW and other brands should do is make an X3 like this, which is incredibly complicated, heavier than it needs to be, 200 kgs heavier than my E39 M5, with all this complicated infotainment system that you have to log into. I never ever wanted to log into my car. I forget enough passwords already. Why must I log into my car and update my Bluetooth? Just work. Anyway, so what I've thought is they could develop this version and sell this version as an extremely expensive, complicated, heavy version of the car for people who want all these toys. Then they can make a stripped down version. And instead of calling it the poverty spec, they could call it the enthusiast spec. So what they do is they strip out all the unnecessary nonsense in here, give you a way more simplified infotainment system, and then the car will be lighter and faster and more enjoyable and cheaper. Hey, that's brilliant. That's how they're going to save their industry. The thing is, they're never going to do that, are they? They're going to make you subscribe to things like heated seats.
Let's find what moves you. Cars.co.za.